We're live.
Are we live?
Yes, we
It's
are.
We're
it's
live.
spinning on my
It says that.
side, but if we're live, then let's
I see
go.
up in
Oh,
the
there
upper
we go.
left, it says we're live.
Oh, we've been live for 18 seconds, so AV was right. Hey guys, happy Thursday. So sorry. We always have technical difficulties when we go live, of course. But today we are going to discuss frequently asked questions about digital transformation with public transit authorities. So super excited about this topic. I have AV with me today, and then Andrew. We just can't get rid of him. He wants to jump on live with us all the time. So
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Hey, we do
yeah,
promise
and his
subject
beard
matter
has actually
expertise.
grown in a little more
Yeah.
since the last time we spoke. But no, um, happy to be here today. If you are joining us, let us know where you're joining from. The Avero team is getting ready to go to GFOA in Portland tomorrow. So it's a super exciting week, and we're happy to be with you all today. So I'm just going to go ahead and kick it off and with the first question. So how is digital transformation impacting the public transit sector, and how are ERP systems playing a role in that transformation?
What a great question. Let me kick it off, and Andrew, you can jump in after this. I think public transit is one of the most important services a government agency or a city or a county or a regional government can offer. And we saw that especially during COVID, and how important it was that those systems have their um, processes and technologies together so that people can have access to uh, uh, transportation, to go to their jobs, to meet family and whatnot. So we do a lot of work with public transit agencies to automate and upgrade their ERP systems, ITS systems, ETMS systems, EDMS systems, you name it. And it's a very unique sort of organization because they are funded by different agencies. They collect tax revenue indirectly. They are also recipients of grants from um, different organizations, including the FDA. And so they have a lot of special handling of technology and operations. And it's really important that they take digital transformation and especially ERP transformation really seriously. So, Andrew, what's been your experience?
Well, AV, as I was thinking about Megan's question, that's a great question to kick this session off. Two things came to mind. You've got the public facing side as part of the digital transformation where folks aren't necessarily coming up to the transit authority to buy their passes. We want to make sure that they're able to use cutting edge technology, specifically, to use their phone to be able to do business with the transit authority and coordinate their rides, whether we're talking about dial a rides or paratransit or fixed routes or commuters. So that's the first part of it. But then the second part is when we start talking about ERP technologies, we want to make sure that the internal stakeholders at a regional transit authority have data that they can make real time decisions so that they've got integration across their systems. And that's really where ERP comes into play.
Right, and I think it's also, from back in the day when we did transit authorities in 2007. The world was a different place, and it's gotten so much better with mobile technology and artificial intelligence that transit authorities especially are poised to take advantage of all these new and upcoming technologies.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you all. So sorry. I had to plug my computer in. I don't know if I'm still fuzzy or still on a delay,
You're
but
good.
one of
Now
those.
you look good.
Hopefully,
Yep.
hopefully I still look good and it wasn't awkward. So my next question is, could you all talk about how two-tier ERP systems are being implemented in transit agencies?
So my understanding of two-tier is what's also called best of breed,
Mm-hmm.
hybrid systems. And I think the answer is going to be common to any industry, but especially with transit agencies. You have uh, you know a few major software systems that they typically use. One is, of course, financial ERPs, your typical HR payroll systems, your time and attendance system. And then what gets more complicated is your fuel management, your
Yep.
maintenance management systems, your operations management systems, your GPS enabled automated vehicle tracking systems. And then a third layer of that is what's referred to as run cutting, or scheduling systems that tell you exactly when a bus is supposed to be at what route at what point on the route, and then layer that on top with how many people are on board, how many people came on board at a certain bus stop, how many got off, who paid and what method. And all of that needs to come together for the operations management team to see what's going on in their transportation system. As I mentioned earlier, back in the day, and when I say back in the day, this is 15 years ago, these were disparate systems. We lost Andrew.
We did.
And it was a lot of back end work to make all of these things work. So when you talk about a 2-tier ERP system, it doesn't sound as scary as it used to be, because all of these systems work together pretty seamlessly now, right? So we're helping a couple of transit agency clients implement large scale ERP systems that are best of breed. They're not necessarily looking at overhauling the whole operational infrastructure, but they're just looking at financial systems. What can we do better with this system, and does it talk to our operational systems like ITS systems, fare collection systems, operation systems, CAD AVL, run cutting system? All of that sort of needs to work together. So it's not uncommon these days for any agency to have a 2 or 3-tiered system, what's also referred to as a best of breed. That really means that what works best for you in a certain functional area is what you go with. And then at the very top level, at the executive level, you have decent reporting and dashboarding and business intelligence solutions that give you data and information on a timely basis so you can make database decisions. Welcome back, Andrew.
I'm
Hey,
back
Andrew.
like I never left. Yeah, I'm still frozen at parts. That's all right.
Do you have any comments, Andrew, on 2-tier ERP systems and how they benefit? Okay.
You don't necessarily need one system to do all things. I mean, we see a lot of the best of breed approach out here. I mean, the interfaces between all the major systems are already built. So that's really not a challenge. And, like AV said, I mean, from a business intelligence perspective, your ERP system is either going to have that tool already in it, or there's external tools that are available that can handle all the reporting that you need. The one major thing, though, is when you start thinking about fleet asset management and work order management, is you've got to make sure that there's a good integration between your fuel system and between your work order management system. Otherwise, getting the miles in there and being able to automate your preventative maintenance system is going to be very challenging. And we've run into that situation even more recently. So that's one thing that I think is very critical. But yeah, I mean, they're trying to find one system that can really do it all. It can be very challenging. I mean, on the financial side, financial management and fleet asset management couldn't be further apart. So that's a textbook example of where a best of breed situation might come into play.
Yeah, and also, a presentation we did last week on electronic records management for transit agencies. Mm-hmm. You're going from paper records, right? The old process was you're doing maintenance or contract compliance checks and operational checks, reams and reams and stacks of paper. Even our, fire department clients or any kind of fleet operations, they're mostly doing operations and inspections on paper. With best of breed solutions, you now have, not just tablet based or handheld based inspections that reduces paper, but also you have diagnostic tools that are built within vehicles that tell you what's going on without you having to check it. Of course, Andrew and I were on a project for a transit authority and we were contract compliance officers. We've done things that no automated system would do for you ever, like checking the backs of seats for graffiti and gum. So our job was to represent the client because they had a third-party operations contractor, and the operations contractor's contract said that if the buses were dirty, if there was graffiti, if there was gum stuck on stuck on the seats,
Yep.
that they would get charged for every offense like that. It was
Yeah.
we were
Hey,
responsible to,
we
yeah, and we
recouped
would
about
come up with all kinds of
$500,000 for our client
yeah,
through that, and
liquidated damages. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
we
Anyway,
would show up at 2:30 in the morning. Yep.
There you
And
go.
we would go and check out the whole entire fleet. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it was about creating value for the client, and improving the performance of the contractor. And, ultimately, you want the citizens to feel safe, on your transit. And that's what we were able to do. And it improved the aesthetics and it improved the operational performance as well. So, very successful effort there, AV.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I hadn't heard that story yet.
Yep.
So I love that. I mean, we're constantly advocating for our clients and we do a good job of that. So could you all do a deep dive into some of the features that are unique to transit ERP systems?
want to take that one, Andrew?
I mean, when you start thinking about ERP, I mean, on the financial side, it's going to be pretty much similar to city and county government. I mean, you're going to have your chart of accounts. You're going to want to make sure you're doing a crosswalk from your existing chart, to what's offered in the new. When you're going through that implementation, you're going to have your budget. You're going to have your accounts receivable. You'll have your vendor management and your payables. Depending upon how you're managing your grants, you may have a module on grants. So they're going to be fairly similar from that standpoint on financials. AV, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think where it gets complicated is HR, right?
Yeah,
HR payroll, and like I said, operations. On HR payroll, you have to think about whether their operations are all in-house or have they outsourced something,
or if it's a turnkey. Yep.
Right. If it's a turnkey operation, that means there's a third party that comes in and supplies drivers, maintenance folks, and generally operations. So we've seen it work either way, where we have a client that has just 20 employees that work for the transit agency, and then you have 300 employees on the operations contractor side that actually run the operations on the streets and in the shed. So when it comes to hybrid operations like that, you have to think about who's going to own the systems, right?
Yes.
We had a client in California that had a hybrid system, but the client owned all of the systems. They owned the ERP, the HR, the timekeeping systems, the maintenance management systems, and they let the contractor use these systems. On the flip side, we have another client today that has a similar approach, but the contractor owns and operates the maintenance management and HR payroll systems for their crew. So when you have these kinds of nuances, you want to make sure that at the very end, all of this data flows into the client's financial system, so that they can report back to whoever the granting agency is or to their board on how things are going and how well they're spending taxpayer dollars. So I think the basics of an ERP system are similar for a transit agency. It just gets really complicated when it comes down to the operations, how they're set up, and when you go through a requirements process, you have to make sure you're taking all of those things into account.
And I wanted to add something to that, AV, and I'm glad you brought that up at the very end, because as we've helped this client that you're speaking of go through the process of defining requirements and ultimately selecting, their most recent ERP system, we made sure to define requirements on the HR side and also on the maintenance side in the event that they wanted to go ahead and bring that operation back in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And we were able to
Yep.
we were able to make the case with the vendor during contract negotiations that may potentially take place. So we were able to work directly with the vendor and lock the pricing for a period of 2 years while our client makes that decision. Hey, do we want to bring HR back in-house? Do we want to bring maintenance back in-house?
Yes.
Well,
And
and
in
it,
your, oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
Megan,
No, go ahead. I was asking another question. So continue with your comment.
it's the flip side too, right? We had a client that had all of these things. They had administration and maintenance in house, but they had operations outsourced. So bus drivers, scheduling, all of that was outsourced. Maintenance was in house, and administration was in house. So what that means is CEO, HR director, operations director, IT was all in house. And at some point during the engagement, they decided to outsource maintenance also. So we're implementing an ERP. We're trying to help them select an operations contractor while also implementing a maintenance management system. And the requirements changed mid implementation. The board decides to outsource maintenance. So now we had to build that into our negotiations, not just on the system side, but also on the operations contractor side. But it worked out in the end because it everyone was on the same page trying to make that happen.
So why would an organization, why would it be good to outsource versus not outsourcing maintenance or implementing this hybrid model versus not? What are the pros and cons of each?
I think specifically for transit agencies, it comes down to the dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have, and it differs by agency. It really comes down to, can we do this cheaper with an outsourced model?
Gotcha.
And can we keep our rates down? Can we keep our consumption down? Can we keep our operations seamlessly running? And to our earlier point, you can build in things like liquidated damages for a variety of things. How late were your buses on average this month? How dirty were your buses? How much fuel did you spend that you didn't need to spend? Things like idling time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, again, 15, 20 years ago, you had to actually manually calculate all of that. Now buses, the onboard systems supply you all of this data. You can then use that to keep your operation contractors um, on track and liable to you, because it costs dollars and cents again to not run according to your contract. So if you can do all of those things better, if there's profit motive on the private sector, because most of these operations contractors are private companies. You have Veolia, you have First Transit, and it's in their best interest to make money with that contract. So it comes down to dollars and cents, and can you get a better service out of a contractor than you could provide on your own?
Well, another thing I would think is just in terms of buying power and sourcing parts. I mean, they're going to be able to really
Yeah.
leverage that in relation to, a local transit trying to buy some of these parts. So, I mean, that could end up lowering costs as well.
Can you all discuss the importance of integration and how integration can help decision making?
Hmm. That's really critical for, again, especially for transit agencies. It's important for every kind of government agency, but transits, because of how many moving parts there are, you have to make sure that all of these systems are integrated. Otherwise, you're going to be running in silos. You will be doing duplicate things in multiple systems. And at the executive level, like the CEO and the board level, you may not ever get the data you need. Or you'll have 3 or 4 sources of truth, and you wouldn't know which one is true. Again, to tell you a story, we worked with the transit agency in California that had a mess on their hands for their financial system. Like, you couldn't tell if the balance sheets were right, the P&L statements were right, if the inventory report was right, to the point where they had to build everything from the bottom. We had to go do physical inventory of every nut and bolt, every tire, um, in this 300 bus operation, to get real data to put into the new system, and then reconcile that with their financial system. And I think we got them closer to one source of truth, but
Yeah.
it wasn't perfect anyway.
We had to audit their grants
Mhm.
prior to the audit and reconstruct all of that. That was fun. I think another story to tell, Megan, and I alluded to it earlier when I was talking about the integration of the fuel system. with your maintenance management system.
Mhm.
You are utilizing the mileage to automate the scheduling of your preventative maintenance on the fleet.
Yeah.
And I mean, there can be huge dollars at stake if you're not properly maintaining those vehicles. So, you're going to have your regularly scheduled maintenance, your preventative maintenance, and then you're going to have unscheduled that's going to pop up. You got to make sure that mileage is always accurate so that you're properly scheduling your oil changes and your tune-ups on your fleet. And when you're running into problems where, if you're entering that manually, I mean, we all know you make a mistake, you write the wrong number down, and next thing you know, you've got a bus that's 10,000 miles overdue on an oil change. You could potentially blow out an engine on that. So you can really see the value add in that instance of integration between systems.
And not just that. Now think about most major transit operations run between counties and cities, right? So you have a large transit operation that works in a major metro area. They're not confined to one city or one county. They're running through multiple counties, multiple cities, and picking up customers or riders and dropping them off somewhere. So how are they funded, right? Most transit agencies are funded by these counties and cities that this transit operates in. So they have to calculate how many miles your transit ran within my county versus yours, my city versus yours, and that dictates your revenue streams. And that leads to major fights on county commissions and between the boards saying, that's not true. Prove to me that your transit agency ran 1,000 miles in my county. We never see your buses. Your buses are always broken down. So you need to automate this and you need to nail it down because it has major implications on funding and financing and therefore your bus fare rates. Because if your participating agencies are not paying in to your funding sources because they don't believe your data, guess who's going to take the brunt of the fare hikes? The customers. So it's very important. All of these things, again, very complicated, much more so than a one city or a one county operation on ERP. But it's we love doing transit projects. This is a reason because there's so much going on, and this puzzle just needs to be solved.
Yes, absolutely. So sustainability is a huge focus for transit. So how are ERP systems, supporting sustainability for transit agencies?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, let's redefine like ERP for transit agencies probably, and should include ITS and fuel management systems, routing systems, and scheduling systems because you can't just look at it from a financial standpoint. And to your point on sustainability, if all of these things work together, then you will know when the best time to run a route is because you'll have data backing the ridership. The time of day dictates the fuel consumption because of traffic, because of weather patterns. So fuel management, schedule management, and efficient run cutting, I think it's really important, not just for operations, but for sustainability. And then to Andrew's point earlier, all of that backs up into your preventive maintenance schedule. And if you keep your buses, and things are changing now with electrification for the better. Of course, there's other implications on the environment with electrification, but for the most part, it's a good thing. So there aren't as many moving parts on a bus anymore. You don't need to do oil changes. You don't need to do. I'm assuming I'm not an expert in this, but you're not having to manage fuel as closely as you would. So all in all, it's a good thing for the environment and sustainability that bus systems and transit systems are moving to the electrification route. But those that are not, they still have to keep in mind that data is going to give you access to the tools that will allow you to become more sustainable. And again, you have to think about this in an integrated manner so that you can keep costs down, can keep the impact on the environment down. What do you have to say, Andrew?
No, I completely agree with that, AV. It's imperative that you have all those systems working together in order to, really run the most efficient transit operation that you can. And we're starting, you bring up electrification. You're starting to see EVs. Um,
Mhm.
you know, some of our transit clients, they're in the market for that, but I know that there's a real shortage of the buses themselves, and you're on a 1 to 2 year wait, to bring that into your fleet. I know that at this point.
Wow.
Yep.
Let's talk about customer experience. How do ERP systems specific to transit agencies, how are they leveraging the customer experience? Can you guys provide some examples?
I think, any client of ours has a client of their own, and for
Mhm.
transit agencies, it's more of a retail customer. They rely on the transit to go to their jobs, to go see family, to go, for recreational activities. Um, so it's really important that the end customer experience always remains at the top of the requirements list. ERP, again, thinking of ERP as the global ecosystem of all systems involved in transit operations. I think the biggest impact in the last 10 years has been the use of mobile technology, right?
Absolutely.
You don't have to go line up at the transit center to get your monthly pass. You don't have to have cash on you to get on a bus anymore in most transit systems, right? So that has also improved transit operations on the financial side because, again, remember when we first started in transit, Andrew, there used to be a room that we were not allowed in, and it was full of cash and
That's
coins.
exactly right.
The consultants were not allowed anywhere near that room because we would steal quarters. But we knew like it was a major part of business process of
Mhm.
fair system implementations. And I wonder what those rooms look like now because of cashless systems and mobile technology, which is only going to get better with blockchain and the
Yep.
proliferation of more trust-based systems. Um, but I think keeping in mind that the customer that rides the bus is the most important part of the whole system is really critical. And I think transit agencies have made huge strides in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, from a receivable standpoint, fare collection is not really an issue. I mean, it's all electronic,
Yeah.
and I mean, with the new mobile technologies, it makes it so much easier, even for folks from a planning standpoint. You can really, those routes are updating. You're understanding if the routes are running late, if they're running ahead of time. You can see the maps on your phone. You can buy the passes on your phone. I mean, it's really, really amazing. And from a fare collection standpoint, it makes it a lot easier for the transit authority to manage their financials.
Hmm.
Yep.
Right. So, how are cloud based ERP solutions influencing the public transit sector, and what are the advantage and potential challenges in implementing these systems?
Yeah, we just had a not a fight. We had a philosophical argument with one of our clients, CIOs, on this, on premise versus cloud.
Hmm.
Look, a lot of vendors are not offering on premise solutions anymore. So if you're digging your heels in wanting an on prem solution, there's other reasons for it. You're
Hmm.
trying to protect your own kingdom and
Yep.
fortress. It ends up being more costly in the long run because if you look at the simple math of it, yes, buying a server, putting things on premise today is less costly on paper, but you're not taking into account the cost of not going to the cloud. How many people do you need on premise to keep that system running? How many backup systems do you need? How much more cybersecurity do you need to layer on top of your on-premise solution? Um, and it's detrimental to the agency because then you have knowledge that sits with one person or one small group of people, that really opens you up to a whole other bunch of risks. So, um,
Hmm.
So
Cloud
let-
isn't perfect, but it's a whole lot better from a business standpoint to go that way.
So let's tie this question into the discussion that we just finished up with, Avi. Let's say that you're on-premise version 1.0, and the ERP solution provider rolls out version 2.0 on cloud that has mobile technology involved. Well, you're stuck. You're stuck unless you choose to go with a formal upgrade to your on-premise solution, Megan, which is going to be extremely costly to your transit authority. If you have the software as a service model, which is basically, subscription based, you always have the latest and the greatest, then a couple times a year when that ERP solution provider rolls out a minor update, or at the beginning of next year they roll out a major update, you're already signed up for it. And instead of worrying about, oh no, we need to go and buy a new application server and this and that, and we need to worry about our backups, the vendor's already handling that. The only thing your team needs to do is work with that vendor on the release notes and understand how that new functionality is ultimately going to impact your key business processes. So it's really a no-brainer. And I mean, like Avi said a moment ago, we're starting to see that the major ERP solution providers, I would think within the next 3 years, on-premise is completely obsolete, maybe even sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about the software solution providers? Are there any features to certain solutions? I know that we don't advocate or resell any software, but are there some features to some of the newer solutions out there, cloud-based maybe, that you all are fans of?
I would say that the one of the major ones that we're starting to see on the financial side, and we discussed it a little bit earlier, is the inclusion of business intelligence tools right within the financial system. That's allowing you to have advanced reporting, analytics, dashboarding, not from, and not just limiting the source to your financial system. You can actually integrate that with other systems and pull from different data sources, like in a data lake.
Yeah, and it's the next 6 to 12 months are going to be fascinating because of AI and GPT like things, right? I'm a fan of natural language reporting, meaning as a human being, as an executive, I want to know a certain thing without having to go to IT or to a report writer and then them spending months trying to get me a report. I want to ask the system, how many people were on a certain route this morning? How much fuel did we spend last month? What are the forecasts for ridership in the month of July if temperatures hit a certain point? What are the ridership trends for my city if my baseball team goes to the playoffs this year? That kind of reporting and planning tool right now are very complicated if they're available, but you really need a lot of data in the right spots and the right people to run those models for you. And I think with AI, it's going to be at your fingertips, and that's the part I'm most excited about. To just type it in there, or ask Siri or ask Alexa about those questions that seem to be very complicated. But if the data exists and AI exists in those systems, I would get them at the drop of a hat. And that's where we're going, and that's the most exciting thing to me. We're not seeing it yet, not in our systems that we're working with our clients. It's not there yet, but it's coming.
Yep.
Say I'm an executive at a transit agency. I'm in a leadership role, and I notice my systems and my processes are very clunky. And, I know we need to update. What are some of the things I can do, right, to implement a digital transformation strategy? What are some of the things I need to be looking for, questions I need to be asking to foster digital transformation in my organization?
I'll take the opportunity to just throw out a shameless plug. You can call us. I mean, we've been doing
not a
this.
sales pitch.
Yeah.
I had to take advantage of that. But
That's
I think
right.
the first thing that you want to do, and you've got tenured staff, Megan, that have been working at your transit authority for years, and the only thing that they know is your current state.
Right.
And they've made the best with what you have, but they may not even be able to have the vision to look beyond that. And I think that it's important that as you start to go down that road, schedule a lunch and learn demo so that you can see what is out there and what is possible. And from there, what we do is we like to work with our clients and do a business process analysis so that we can envision from a functional standpoint how we would move forward and start using this system. From there, we like to develop a comprehensive list of system requirements, functionally, integration requirements, security requirements, and then we will take that into a competitive bid process and let the requirements drive which solution out there is the best fit for our client. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the most sophisticated is the best for us. And it definitely doesn't mean that the lowest cost is best for us.
I would even take it a step beyond that, Andrew. If you're a medium to large transit agency that is looking for digital transformation, make sure you're going at it from a technology strategy perspective.
Yep.
It's not just one system, especially a transit agency. You're not going to digitally modernize or transform if you just replace your financial ERP or your HR system or your ITS system. You need to have a long-term strategy. And by long-term, I mean 3 to 5 years on what projects you're going to take on, in what order, how much they're going to cost, and who's impacted, and what this grand work plan looks like. What you need is a strategy before you even start buying things, because we've seen people and clients, especially transit agencies, that do this piecemeal and then try to figure out how is this going to fit with my fare collection system, and oops, now we need to replace our fuel management system. So
we've also seen where they will just go and buy something without looking at the true requirements. We've, and you start to see that siloed approach. Megan, sadly, we've run into situations in the last couple of years where two different departments that have a fairly similar common need go and buy two different systems that perform the same function. So, you definitely need to have that big picture approach where you've got representation from all the stakeholder groups before you go and undertake this digital transformation effort that you're speaking of.
Yeah. One of the questions we get asked all the time refers to timeline. So does the timeline differ in a digital transformation project for a transit authority versus a city or county, or does it all just depend on what's going on and what the business processes look like internally?
It depends.
Yeah. Yep. That's the answer. I mean, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing the planning. And I think that planning effort could take, 6 to 9 to 12 months, but really sketch things out. And then once you've gotten to the point where you've selected your vendor or your vendors, you're going to want to put together a pre-implementation plan that identifies what systems are going in, making sure you've taken into consideration, just general operations for the transit. When is a good time? But I would say, we've been talking about ERP, you can plan on a 9 to 12 months for the new maintenance system, 9 to 12 months for the new financial system, 9 to 12 months for the HR system, and then you can start looking at your ITS and other systems like that. In some instances, Megan, those will be separate teams, so you can implement those in tandem. But again, that goes back to putting together that comprehensive plan so you can really see it at the executive level and
Mhm.
understand how this whole thing comes together. So
Right.
it's going to be a multi-year commitment.
Yeah, I mean, mostly depends on how large or small your agency is
Yep.
Mhm.
and how you're set up.
Yes, and we would encourage you all to take your time, right? These are legacy projects, nothing that needs to be rushed. Would you all agree with that statement?
Absolutely.
Well, good deal. I don't have any more questions on my end, but if there's something that you all feel like we left out as it relates to digital transformation in transit agencies, please feel free to comment now
Or later, this will be available.
or later. Yes, yes. And if you're joining us today, Greg, I'm sorry we missed you earlier. He says you're live, and he was joining from Ohio. So sorry about the technical difficulties today. We never know what we're going to get when we go live, but thank you all for being patient with us. And again, follow us on all social channels, ask us questions, and come see us at GFOA if you're there. We will have a booth in the vendor hall. So thank you all for your
What
time
booth
today.
number are we?
444.
444. Yeah,
Yes.
that's 3 4s, you guys. We'll see you there.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank
Have a
you.
great weekend. Bye-bye.